Okay, so I've been meaning to do some content about lucid dreaming for quite some time now. I need to get on top of like making my dream journal as well, which will be very soon. I'm going to have, aside from my shadow journal, I will also have the dream journal for dream interpretation, lucid dreaming recording, and just trying to decipher symbolism and messages. Speaking of messages, Spirit is being very interesting today. So it's all about being practical about yourself, making mistakes, allowing yourself to make mistakes. So, okay, hear me out. We do a lot of shadow work in our lucid dreaming state, and to to make sense of it all is very difficult. And so that is why, and I've mentioned this before in previous videos, where we do so much subconscious learning through our dream state, because there's things that we can really relay into our, our reality by being able to decipher these messages. So we don't have to re-experience karmic situations. We don't have to have other people experience karmic situations with us, and we can just do a lot of healing. And some things are better done in the dream state. I don't know why specifically, but it just is. You know what? I do know why, because there's this thing about dreaming where we are just in a completely different reality. And I will get into that when I talk about I have like I had the craziest dream last night. I'm going to explain it to y'all in just a little bit. But anyway, so you can really snap into like a whole different reality in your dream state, because you can, like, I remember from when I was a kid, I could literally feel the flesh on my legs, and I could feel the chills and like the little hair sticking up and everything, and it felt like I was there. Given, there's a lot of discernment we need to use and utilize with our dreams, and so that's why dream interpretation can be difficult starting out, and it can also give you a little bit of conflicted views of reality when you're trying to decipher or look too deep into things. So that's why, even with tarot reading and lucid dreaming, like, use discernment, because I have a really great example I'll tell you in just a little bit. But anyway, I'm holding these cards for a reason. We like to pull the cards before we start the topic so we can get a confirmation of today's energy, and there's some messages coming through, and it's the clearest message is you are allowed to make mistakes. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Free that responsibility of not wanting to make mistakes, because you are allowed to make mistakes. That is the human aspect, and the most beautiful and divine part of you is allowing yourself to make mistakes. No, not everyone wants to, especially if they're a Virgo. But at the same time, when you allow yourself that mental freedom, that, like, hey, I don't have everything figured out, then things become much less stressful. You can be much more practical about decision making, and you don't have to go through it. That's my point. Like, you don't have to go through it. Just allow yourself to breathe. Okay, so we had some pretty heavy retrograde, like, lessons come through, so it's probably pretty practical to kind of like look back at your path. She's not necessarily, I think she's looking back. There's like a tunnel going forward, and she's looking back. And so this is a little tidbit of what shadow work really truly is really being honest with yourself, being raw with yourself, and understanding where you've come from. Like, literally where you've come from is so important, because, like, no, we shouldn't dwell on our past. That's not what I'm saying. Hear me out. But allowing yourself to realize, like, the things that you actually went through were actually difficult, and you went through them and you grew so much from it, is very freeing. It's very beautiful, and it allows you to understand, like, the more human aspects of your esoteric being. I know, complicated. Not really. But there are so many hidden messages that come through. Look, we had the Mercury retrograde. I don't remember exactly when it ended, but I think it was like maybe a week ago. We're still kind of in the shadow period. Look, bro, retrograde Mercury, retrograde Mercury. If that doesn't scream things to you, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't, because it's not exactly relevant to you. But I really think that it is, because there are some messages coming through for your dreams. Like, okay, so last night I had the wildest, it's probably not the wildest, I've had some pretty crazy dreams in the past. But it was really strange because I was okay. So if you've watched any of my other videos, I'm sure you have because I love you, and if you have, like, there was, I say this pretty often that Earth is a school. We're here to learn about ourselves, what it means to be a human, and what it means to be esoteric as well. So allow yourself to really be the, spiritual creature that you are, but also allow yourself to be human because, again, we make mistakes. I was trying to film this earlier and somehow deleted it because I was clearing out Google storage so I could it didn't make any sense to me, but whatever. It's deleted. And I'm refilming this and it's okay. But when you know that we do a lot of shadow work, when you understand that we do a lot of shadow work and intuitive learning too, like, there's so much we can explore within our own consciousness and our abilities if you make a real intent. Like, if you tell the universe, write it down in a notebook, burn it, or fold it and put it in a jar, whatever it is, like your form of magic, like, let the intention be known to the universe because the universe will respond to you, but you need to communicate these efforts to the universe. So that's very important. And just set the intention. Listen to some theta waves before you sleep. If you want to get into lucid dreaming or astral traveling, like, allow yourself to set the intention before you sleep so you can control and manipulate that dream into a specific way where you're going to activate that type of learning. But also be very wary, not very wary, but be aware that, this sort of healing can actually trigger some things and allow you to relive some experiences, not in like a nasty, gnarly way, but in a way where you're going to like get into your dream and go through some trauma and realize that, a lot of that was real and it was your past and you're allowing yourself to, re-experience it so you can grow and, become this person that you need and want to be. So, having that freedom, that mental freedom, and just being, utilizing discernment too. And I'll get into that in just a second. Like, when you utilize discernment and also still try to dig deeper into your dreams, you can really figure out so much more about yourself and the world around you and the way things connect on an esoteric energetic level. Like, the universe was already created. All of these portals and doors just exist here for us to go through and utilize. Like, that's the only way that reality would honestly make sense. Like, on a real level. Like, we're just energy in our brains. Sit with that one for a second because the rest of this is going to come out and it's going to make much more sense. Okay, now then, let's get into my dreams. So, the last night, I was in a school. This is my dream. I was in a school. It wasn't necessarily a school that I've ever like necessarily like physically been to like in real life, but I feel like I've been to that school before. Like, it had this strong connection with my soul. Like, I have relived this experience. I've relived this lifespan many, many times. Like, almost exactly the same way, but also different in different ways because we sign up on this little contract. Watch my soul contract video, by the way, and we write all these things down about the things that we want to experience, and so we can do that. And we can also make different decisions. Like, we don't have to be bound by soul contracts. You can do all kinds of like karmic clearing to just release yourself from all of those expectations. But the school was very profound for me because it made me realize, like, yeah, I have been here before. Yeah, I have re-experienced this, but it's not on a debilitating way where, like, yeah, I've relived this many, many, many times and all of this trauma. Like, reliving trauma is not something that you want to glamorize. Like, it's not something that is something that we want to do, but it is beneficial in a lot of ways because there's so much real deep conscious learning that we can utilize from that. So, yeah, it's toxic to want to continue reliving experiences so you can just like learn things the hard way, But at the same time, it still teaches you the things that you need to learn in order to grow and become an esoteric creature. Like, if you want to tap into your abilities, your psychic abilities, your divination, bro, you gotta do the work. That's funny. So funny. So, tap into your consciousness, release expectations, and use discernment, but also be realistic and unrealistic. Just kidding, sort of. You'll understand what I mean. About the symbolism, because there's so much to decipher, there's so much to figure out. And my biggest form of advice is as soon as you wake up, just journal. Journal whatever happened, anything that you remember, highlights, because, like, in 30 seconds, bro, 30 minutes from now, like, none of this is even going to exist in your brain anymore. Sometimes it will, but not always. So just, like, write it down as soon as you wake up, especially if it was a nightmare, especially if it was traumatizing, especially if it was very vivid and lucid. Like, just write it down whether you think you're going to remember it or not. Like, my best form of advice is just to write it down anyway. Okay, now that that's put out there, the school was very profound for me again because I've been here before. I've relived these experiences and I've talked to these similar people in real life and on a spiritual esoteric like conscious level and subconscious level. Like there's so many things that we are connected to and don't understand because it can seem so small. Like a butterfly is a symbol, bro, and it could be your spirit guides just telling you and trying to get your attention, like, hey, we got your back. There are things that we can help you with. And and using this better judgment, trying to hide the boobies. Using this better judgment will really will give you a profound sense of clarity about like the universe around you and why we go through karmic experiences anyway. Because if you realize that the universe is just here and it's the universe is experiencing itself by like creating all of these creatures and people and pretending or whatever that it is a real being or however your perception of this works, like when you understand that and you're like, oh, there's karma involved too. Like, I could be living some type of fairy tale life if I really wanted to as the universe, but I want all these people here and all these creatures, and I want them to be free thinkers, and I want them to tap into their abilities so they can bring this profound learning and experience to other people and creatures and just like at least create this little bit of form of peace on earth, whatever that will really mean to you. I hope it means something because it means a lot to me. I'm sorry, but just sound like a hippie. It's okay. I am a hippie. I'm a goth girl hippie. Anyway, so my dream was very like, if you understand that Earth is a school and you allow yourself to experience life that way, you can either like, you can allow it to affect you or you can allow it to benefit you. So, my biggest flex is utilizing that strength. I'm just saying. Like, just let it be you, but also don't let it consume you. So like, yeah, we're here to experience karma. Yeah, we're experiencing like all of this despair and cruelty, but there's so many profound beautiful things too on the world. Like, it's not just doom and gloom and it's not all light and beautiful. There's this equal balance, this give and take. And if you thought about life from a really like esoteric level, like life and death is just a crazy concept if you really broke it down. Like, if we were just here, right? We were just creatures here existing. There was no life or death. There was nothing but just us, and there would probably be some crazy conflict like between different creatures because there would be this profound form of egoism where we're competing with each other because we don't have the afterlife or we don't have death staring in our faces ever, and we're just constantly here. Like, we would feel this like profound power, and it would put this like really sharp fiery crown on our heads where we wouldn't have expectations for reality, but it would also be very bland and boring in a strange way. Like, it's so hard to explain, but if there was nothing, would you be happy? No, I don't think so. Probably not. Unless you're just crazy. That's totally cool too. I'm just saying, like, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, if everything existed and it just was, and there was no life or death, and we just were here, like, you wouldn't even have reproduction. Like, we wouldn't even need to reproduce ourselves, so we would just be creatures here, chilling. And there would just be so much chaos in that if you really thought about that on a deep, 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 deep level. I mean, deep. Like, it would be strange. It would be a strange concept to even digest on a real level. Realistic here. Think about it. I'm not just saying things. I want you to actually think about what that would mean because it would be crazy. Anyway, okay, from that aside, going back to the dream, diving deep into this, I was at the school and I was talking to people from my past, people that I've actually talked to in real life, and having these conversations with people. I don't remember the conversations. There was a little spicy moments, and there was this communication that I made with people in reality too from my past life to not necessarily like have closure but rebalance some things in within me on a deep spiritual level. And so that was very important lesson within my dream, is to allow myself to communicate back to these people in reality, because I did feel like a sort of like, I won't say shamed, but like it didn't, I was really sad when it happened. When I was actually physically going through that experience, I was sad. So it was really important for me to relive that in my dream and realize that, yeah, we can have these conversations with people and have this sort of like, I won't even say closure, but like have these conversations with people that close doors and chapters for you on an esoteric, like deep energetic level, so you can keep moving forward and continue to grow your power, your abilities, I should say, and just grow as a person too. Like your relationships, your friendships, your connections, your communication skills, all of that stuff. Like when you allow yourself to just move on to the next chapter in life, one, you're going to experience so much abundance and so much like real like relief, and so much less weight on your shoulders, because you'll know that the universe has your back and it's trying to bring this type of healing into you on purpose, not to punish you or harm you or make you feel less, but it's here to really trigger, and I know that that's a scary word, but it is. It's here to trigger us into healing. Karmic situationships, twin flames, they trigger you into healing, and so do dreams, so do nightmares, bro. When you have had some real trauma, real childhood trauma, real past life trauma, you will re experience it in your dream state and it will come through with clarity. So it can tell you things through symbolism and just understanding. And I really think that we go through the astral traveling and the lucid dream state to kind of not just practice our abilities and our powers, but to really tap into that learning and healing, because there are things that we wouldn't be able to experience in reality. Like, no matter what level of imagination you have, you're still going to have outside distractions in the world. There's going to be lights gleaming at you, there's going to be sounds in the background, there's going to be responsibilities that you need to attend to eventually throughout the day without your anxious emotions, with just being a person that isn't even anxious about that sort of thing and overthinking, there would still be distractions. So my point is, being in your dream state is like the most unique form of learning and healing and shadow work that you can do, because you're just in a completely different reality and your mind takes you where it needs to take you. So hopefully that makes sense. But like these things, they wouldn't be, you would be able to face them, through whatever, like hypnotism. There are like hypnotherapists that will like literally hypnotize you into a dream, like awake dream state, so you can relive these experiences and reevaluate them. So, take that into consideration when we're talking about lucid and astral traveling, so you can understand it better and put some more practical sense behind the divination and the esoteric things. Like the spiritual realm is really complicated to understand sometimes if you're not new, or if you're new and not familiar with things. But that's okay, because this power, this divination, this ability to tap in to your spiritual awakening and manifestation skills and psychic abilities, divination abilities, like it's here for everyone. It really is. And that's why I'm here to teach it to you. So, don't put these doors, don't put these gates on you because you're afraid or you don't know what's going to happen or you think that you're going to be too malevolent or powerful and it's going to thwarp and warp your mind state. It won't do that. If you're practical about it, and you set your ego aside and you just want to have this pure sense of learning, you can tap into these abilities and they will be there for you. Maybe some of them won't be as heightened as you want them to be, but they will still exist in a way where you can tap into it when you need to. And some things we don't have access to because of, other things, past life experiences and malevolency that does actually exist. Like, we could actually become malevolent if we, try to intently harm other people through astral travel. Like, that sort of karma is going to come back to you anyway. So I just want to put that out there. Whoever's watching this video, I'm talking to you. You know who you are. Don't be toxic, okay? Anyway, so, understand that this form of learning is actually here to benefit you. Now, going back to what I was talking about, the discernment part. And, okay, going back to the dream, I was like in a school. I did all of this, like I talked to people from my past. And when I was going around the school, I wasn't there at the school. Like I wasn't back in high school. I was just there. It was almost like it was a reunion, except it wasn't necessarily a reunion. I was just there at school, like talking to people from my past, and not everybody I recognized. But okay, so I was leaving the building, I was leaving the school, walking out, and there was this like futuristic Taco Bell. And this is my point about discernment, okay? Because not everything is going to be a message. Some of it is just stuff that you connect with in your reality, and so it will come into your dream state to create symbolism, create some type of message, maybe me going to the Taco Bell was my reflection so I could teach you about using discernment in your dream state and your tarot reading. Like, discernment's super important. Okay, so anyway, I was watching this video in reality on like Facebook Reels or something, and they were talking about like this futuristic Taco Bell and that you can control with your app. There's no humans involved. You just go through like this drive-through building and you just like tap the screen and everything's done for you by like machines and robots and stuff like that. Okay, maybe a little intimidating the way that I'm explaining it, but the Taco Bell was from reality. Like, there's a real Taco Bell out there that's like that, you know? And so I saw it in my dream as well, though, so I can't really necessarily connect that with some type of, like, esoteric divination type of lucid dreaming message. Like, it's not going to work that way. Because it was a Taco Bell that I experienced in real life. Before I was going to sleep, I was watching that video. So just put that into your head, too. And so walking past the Taco Bell, because it really didn't have any profound meaning. I was just walking past it, and I walk towards this parking lot and then to a sidewalk. And there's this big dude behind me, like this really big guy, and he's like, "Well, hey, can I give you a ride somewhere?" And I'm like, I don't even need a ride. I don't even know where I'm walking. I'm just walking." And so he's still mumbling something behind me. And so I start walking faster. No, I'm not like panicked or anything, but it was like intimidating because there's this dude trying to pick me up and chase me. And I'm like, no. So I start sprinting forward, I start walking faster, and so a red car stops for me and just opens its door, and there's this woman in there, and she's like, "Get in." Um, and so, like, without a thought, fight or flight response, I just get in the car and we drive off, and we just have like this like calm like understanding and just like communication, and we just talk about life, and like none of what just happened in the last 30 seconds even mattered. Like I didn't need to go file a police report or anything like that, thankfully, in my dream. This is all happening in my dream, by the way. So I just I we drove off. There's this bright red car, and it's on autopilot too somehow. Like, and then I end up like kind of like almost, you know how your dreams, like you kind of skip things or you don't remember everything, so your brain skips it. So we're driving, and then we drive to this giant bridge up in the sky, like this, like really, like if you've ever watched like anime movies about the future, and like these super 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 tall buildings like way up in the sky, that's what it was. And there was this giant bridge, and it was a road, and there wasn't rails like you would probably practically think about. It was just vehicles that were electronic and autopilot, and so there wasn't any worries about like collisions and accidents and things like that. Um, and so we just drove up this really crazy tall road, and like down like this bridge, and like we're having this conversation. I don't remember what our conversation was about, so I don't think it was really that profound or meaningful, but just to put a sense of like clarity of like, you know, what you can see in the future or what type of messages are, like it's going to be super intense in your dream. You can feel the chills, you can feel like profound messages come through, but at the same time there are things that we have to decipher and use discernment for, like the Taco Bell. And, you know, you have to just kind of be practical and realistic too when you're trying to decipher dream messages and symbolism and things like that. Because, like, not everything is going to have such a profound meaning, and trying to put a profound meaning on something that's like as simple as a Taco Bell, it won't make sense, first of all. But even if it did make sense, it's not going to hold a whole lot of value. So, like, use discernment with everything in reality. And okay, so after that, it was again like me skipping to the next part, which was like literally. And so I was like up. I skipped dreams. Like I almost like skipped dreams. I don't know if it really worked that way. I really think that it did, but I almost went into a different person's body. There's this show. It's called Peripherals. If you've seen something like that, that could have been where I got this sort of like idea from. But like I was in somebody else's body, in somebody else's reality, in somebody else's life, and I was talking to somebody else who was sitting on a couch. I think it might have been her husband or something, and he was like looking on his app on his phone, like to like order house supplies. I think he was ordering a vacuum, and he showed me on the app, and it was like a cashless society. Like we didn't have money, we didn't have cash, we just had like a credit system. And so it was almost like, you know, interesting to think about, because if you thought about the world in a practical way, we're kind of leaning towards like, you know, like getting rid of like that sort of currency system anyway, because it's like outdated. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to print money and tear down a bunch of trees. I know I sound like a hippie again, but you know, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then if you think about like coins and metals and the value of metal versus like the actual coin and its value, like it doesn't make practical sense. And so we could actually be leaning towards, you know, a cashless society, especially like the way with Bitcoin and digital currency is actually going. So it's just it's important to consider and think about. So maybe there's not like a huge deeper understanding of like the lucid dream that I had last night, but it was really profound, and it was very intense, and I felt like I was in a completely different reality. And so when I woke up, I had to meditate, I had to chill, I had to calm myself down, and I had to relax because it was intense. It wasn't scary, it wasn't a nightmare, but it was super intense, and it was like almost like when you wake up, you just have to snap back into reality, and it was almost like I had a little bit of lag. So like allow yourself to understand that too. If you want to tap into lucid dreaming or astral travel, like understand that there's going to be a sense of like losing your grip of reality at the same time too. Like almost as intense as psychedelics, if not more. I'm just saying. So prepare yourself mentally and psychologically, or I guess they go hand in hand. You know, just physically too. like create a nice safe dream space. So listen to some theta waves, get your journal, drink plenty of water, and be ready to meditate when you wake up, because sometimes they can be, if you're not used to it, especially, they can be really intense to go through and experience. So allow yourself to understand that too if you're wanting to tap into these abilities. I hope you enjoyed today's reading and video. This again was my second time filming, so I had to condense a lot of things, but hopefully the message still got through. I want you to know too, is really profound. Just a little side note, those cards that I pulled earlier were literally the same exact cards that I pulled in the first filming of this video. I just want to put that out there. I love you guys, and I hope you enjoyed today's video about lucid dreaming and astral traveling. Okay,